firm fairness in reporting media. Here's your host, Mark Merrill.
Hi again, everyone. Mark Merrill here. Fairness in Reporting Media. We're going international on this particular episode of Firm about where's help for the Gaza people, for goodness sakes. Really, I'm not kidding, folks. It's ridiculous. We see it all the time in the news, and at the same time, we wish we could do something more. It doesn't seem like we're being able to do much of anything. The bureaucrats keep getting in the way, and so do the terrorists. First thing we're going to start off with, folks, is an interview, or a segment of an interview, with a former Green Beret, and talking with Tucker Carlson about his actual serving time over there after he served in the Army. A very decorated person. Green Berets are one of the top military minds and service people we have, ladies and gentlemen, other than the Rangers in the Army, the Navy SEALs. So Mr. Aguilar will be detailing the shocking war crimes he's witnessed in Gaza. Before we get started, I thought we'd give you a little geographical lesson. Here it is, Gaza Strip, right in here. And Israel, as you can see probably on the smaller map here, if possible, Israel is quite a bit larger. And then Gaza is right on the edge of Egypt as well. But this big strip right here, when magnified from a satellite photograph, shows that it's a long stretch, and hundreds of thousands of people are going hungry, not being served. The United Nations didn't do anything. The United Nations? Now, since when was the last thing that they ever did anything humanitarian, like feed people food and stuff like that who are starving to death? Screw them. If the United States had anything to do with it and Donald Trump could take care of it, he would strip the United Nations of its powers. But unfortunately, there are countries like China, Russia, Iran, who are on the Security Council, as well as the United States, but they don't get very far. Hopefully, for the grace of God, the only true power over this entire earth will have something to say about that in the short run. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, on God's time. We better thank God for Donald Trump. Now, as we get started into it, ladies and gentlemen, we have, as you will see here in a moment, the entire picture there of, or a still picture of Mr. Aguilar on the right, talking to Tucker Carlson and speaking about his knowledge and his service over there after serving as a Green Beret. Quite a revealing interview, of which we only took a few minutes of.
And then earlier this year, you found yourself working in Gaza under GHF, and I'll ask you to explain what that is in a moment. You were in Gaza from the 17th of May this year, 2025, through June 26th, 2025.
correct, sir.
And the reason that I wanted to establish that before you tell the story that you're going to tell us is because very, very few Americans have been in Gaza in the last couple of years. And I don't know any others who have the experience in chaotic situations and combat situations that you have who've been there. And I think that really matters. Anyone who's been around combat knows it's enormously confusing, and having 25 years of experience around violence, I think, gives you greater credibility because it suggests you can interpret what's happening accurately in a way that people who haven't had that experience probably can't. So with that, I want to ask you the first and most obvious question: what is GHF in Gaza?
So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to take over the aid distribution into Gaza, replacing the former United Nations aid delivery mechanism post blocking or cutting off of the Gaza enclave. So there was no aid going in up until May 26th when we started operations, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to lead that effort overall. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I'm not sure in terms of what their actual status is in terms of a company or an NGO or a nonprofit. I don't know what they're classified as, but I know that their GHF is the overall lead for both of the contract mechanisms in Gaza.
So after 25 years as a U.S. Army officer, West Point graduate, Special Forces officer, all these combat deployments, all the decorations that you received, how did you wind up distributing aid in Gaza?
Well, sir, on May 13th, I received a phone call from the UG Solutions. UG Solutions is a subcontract for the security portion of this aid distribution method. They're stationed here in Davidson, North Carolina, where I live. I retired out of Fort Bragg, and they contacted me basically looking for experienced, recently retired or recently gotten out of the military, experienced combat veterans, special forces operations background. So they contacted me and explained the mission to me. Up until that point, till I got that phone call, I was not aware of what UG Solutions or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was. So I was interested, and I listened to what they had to say.
The reason I'm asking you this is I know that after this interview airs, there will be a concerted attempt to discredit you as a man, and I'm certain, having seen this happen many times, that one of the criticisms we levy against you is that you are some sort of political activist with a political axe to grind or an ideological axe to grind. Are you? Because it sounds like from the story you're telling now that you were a retired Army officer who received a call because of your combat experience. Is that correct?
Prior to that phone call on the 13th of May, sir, and remind you, I did retire on the 1st of January. I didn't retire years ago. Been through the 1st of January, and my last day in the Army was 1 March. I was very happy and content. My wife also served a career in the military. She is a retired career military officer. Between the two of us, we have 45 years of service. Between her and I, with my son, we've missed almost every birthday, every anniversary, every Christmas from the time that he was born through the majority of our marriage, and we're still married 17 years later. So I was very much comfortable and established in my retirement lifestyle. No political aspirations, no aspirations to go into another line of work. I'm starting school in the fall. That was my aspiration. I enjoyed making breakfast for my family, taking my son to school every morning, Boy Scout meetings, PTO meetings, watching the Golden Girls in the afternoon with a cup of tea, walking the dog. That was my life, and I was very content. When I got the phone call, I felt that initially, because I didn't know much about the situation, when they first called me, I said, hey, I'd like to take a day to kind of do my own research and just kind of understand what it's all about. My answer is not no, but my answer is not yes. So I took the day. I took the rest of the day. I believe it was a Wednesday. And I went through I started to read about GHF. Not a lot out there. I started to read about Safe Reach Solutions, which is the prime contract. Not a lot out there. I read a little bit about UG Solutions. UG Solutions had been the contract that sent contractors into Gaza in late January through March to control the Netzarim checkpoint once the ceasefire broke, or the ceasefire started, I should say, for the Palestinians that were allowed to then go back into Gaza City. So they had some credibility. It seemed like not many people had done contracts in Gaza. UGS did. So I figured that this would be an opportunity to link up with a company that had the experience. But I was more interested in the mission. I say this again, and I've said it again, I don't know Johnny Moore, the director or CEO or whatever the title is of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But there is something that he said that I do agree with, that there's nothing more Christian than feeding people.
Yes.
And in terms of the sentiment of doing goodwill, feeding starving people, I served for the majority of my career after being an infantry officer and going to Special Forces. The Special Forces motto, as you see in the picture behind me of 1st Special Forces Group, is De Oppresso Liber, to free the oppressed. That is our motto. I just didn't have that on my uniform. I lived that. The civilian population in Gaza, politics aside, political views, religious positions aside, they are being oppressed. Food, water, education, life, dignity. And I wanted to be a part of going in to help in some way. So I have no political aspirations. I have no political leanings. I have no desire to write a book or before doing these interviews, I don't even have social media, and I've never really been out onto the internet. This is all very overwhelming for me. But my wife was a big factor behind me going on the record. My wife being, again, a retired military officer, we understand a lot of the same values. And she explained to me, she said, no one else can tell this story. No one else was there. Not only were you there, you were on the sites, and no one else saw it through the eyes of your experience. In the places you've been, and the things that you've done, the lens you look at this through is different than most people have. You need to go on the record. The American people need to know this.
Quite an excerpt and quite an explanation as to what former Green Beret Tony Aguilar described. As you heard, folks, it's all about what America needs to know. We know who to blame for this, not knowing, don't we? The mainstream media, Biden, Harris, probably George Soros for all we know. Not sure if China's involved in this, but I wouldn't put it past them. And, of course, just a few borders away, the terrorist nation of all, Iran. Thank you for your service, Mr. Aguilar, as well as your wife. As we move on here on Firm, folks, talking about where in the hell is the help for Gaza's people? Anybody got a clue out there? The picture now, as we change gears a little bit, but in the same area, folks, is, of course, I think you all recognize Mike Huckabee in the middle. And the other gentleman to the left is U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who visited Gaza on August 1st. Amid the humanitarian situation in the war-torn strip of Gaza. And just to wrap things up here, folks, we're going to go over a few things in that article supplied by the Epoch Times. We'll get to their information. And by the way, folks, we can give you certainly additional information when it comes to Epoch Times and their coverage right here of Gaza Strip and the visit by Mr. Huckabee and Mr. Witkoff. Of course, the visit came amid growing international pressure to resolve issues with the United Nations. That's called widespread starvation, malnutrition, and other things that most people take for granted: water, clothing. Prompted in part by the crisis, France, Britain, and Canada announced plans to recognize a Palestinian state. Mr. Trump has opposed that. Whole thing behind France, Britain, and Canada, folks, is the fact that they don't give a damn about the people in Gaza. And they don't give a damn about Israel or anyone on the face of this earth created by God Almighty that supports Israel. Anyone want to get a wake-up call? You can read every single book in the Old Testament of the Bible. Get a clue as to what these people, meaning Israel, have been through, let alone starving the people in the Gaza Strip. Palestine is not a country to be recognized as a state the way Israel was in 1948. Why? Because Palestine, if you look up the word and definition of it, that's right, get to common sense, reality, and facts, folks, which is what we cover here on Firm. It's a region. You'll find this one funny, folks, but it really isn't meant to be. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island are a region. It's called New England. Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, among others I may be leaving out, apologies. Those countries I just mentioned are the region of Palestine. That's all they are. Independent countries. Let's clear that up, all right? So this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, as you heard Green Beret Mr. Aguilar describe, doesn't sound like it's such a honest organization to relieve the people, the hundreds of thousands of people starving and barely living an honest life under Gaza, under Hamas in Gaza. The spokesperson Chapin Fay of GHF said the group was honored by Witkoff and Huckabee's visit, but Trump understands the stakes in Gaza and that feeding civilians, not Hamas, must be a priority. Now, trying to save face in all of this, ladies and gentlemen, wanted to point out a couple of things here as we wrap up this program dedicated to the Gaza people, and God help them all. God doesn't want any people to die needlessly at the hands of terrorists or politicians with a goal. What the hell is that? I don't know. You tell me. We welcome also your comments, folks, anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. But to guard against the theft of food, Israel and the United States backed the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which delivered 100 million meals to those since May 5th. You may have heard that from Mr. Aguilar. The UN, though, has refused to partner with GHF, claiming that its methods are unsafe and violate the principle of neutrality, which has exacerbated the food crisis. Well, not to mention the fact that Hamas has stolen a lot of it. Give me a break. Also, 875 Palestinians have died while trying to obtain food. 674 were killed near sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Isn't that nice? Thought you ought to know. Peace negotiations were halted on July 24th with Witkoff, Mr. Witkoff here, stating Hamas was unserious about ending the conflict. While the mediators have made great effort, Israel remains on offense, and Hamas does not appear to be coordinated or acting in good faith, said Witkoff, who posted on X.com. He said, "We will now consider alternative options to bring the hostages home and to try to create a more stable environment for the people of Gaza." That's where we stand, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a pretty picture. Sure as heck isn't for the people of Gaza. Yet some of our students and our political left-wing radical idiots in this country still scream free Palestine. For more information, folks, on what we've presented to you here on Firm, you can go to a couple of sites. And we'll let you know that first, it's The Epic Times. Just put the word the, epictimes.com, and then type in a /world/Witkoff-Huckabee-visit. We'll post that in the comments at the conclusion of our program. And also, for more information on other interviews and other information about world events and United States events, go to tuckercarlson.com. tuckercarlson.com. As usual, folks, we thank you for joining us here on Firm, Fairness in Reporting Media, with Mark Merrill. Everyone stay safe out there, and peace to the world, as always.